Good morning. Can everybody hear me and see my screen okay? Yep, okay, good. Good, so you got your SAPI Standard 6 today, Kim. Cool, yeah, I think hopefully we'll have time towards the end of this class that I can show you that website and kind of show you how to, I have to find my login for it. It's been a while, and show you how to order everything. Yeah, I'll show you. I think we'll have time today that I can show you that website. So, and I can show you some of the stuff that I have. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. A little kind of all over the place right now, so just give me a second. I got to catch up with myself here. All right, so we are week 2, class 2 for DES344 Advanced Print Productions. So welcome. How is everybody doing this morning? Did everybody get their assessment at least started or finished? How did that go? That's right, I'm still breathing. Still breathing. You got it started, Miranda. Good. Working on it now. Good. Still working on it. Good. Yeah, so if you need me to show you those fonts again, I'm happy to. I think I still have those up, so I can show you those again when we go over our assignments today. Do a couple of things that I want to cover today. We will go back over, yes, there's very limited on the OpenType. That's very true on the OpenType characters. No, there aren't very many glyphs for them. Yeah, that's kind of what I was explaining. It's not as widely used anymore, so they're just not using them as often. When they create the fonts, they're just not creating those subsets for them. So I have seen people still use them. I mean, there are still uses for them, absolutely. You can get some really cool kind of effects on your text using them. But again, they're not used very often, so not a lot of, they're just not creating those subsets anymore for those fonts because they're just not used as often, and they're putting their time and energy into other things. So that's just kind of the way it works. Just finished watching the live session yesterday. We should have class on Monday. Oh, okay, yeah. Sorry, yeah. Mondays are just not good for me. I try and get all my grading done on Monday usually, because I do like to start class with at least most of your stuff graded, so I know if there's anything else I have to go over and stuff like that. Yes, you do have to. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I mean, why give them away for free if you can make you pay for them? Exactly. But again, they're just not used very often either. In all of my career, I think I used them one time for like kind of a special effect on a flyer that I did, like that. Seriously. So just being honest with you. Okay, so I do want to review week 2 so that everybody is kind of on the same page and knows what we're working on. I have a cool Prezi that I want to show you. It's not mine. It's something found off the internet, but it's got some really interesting information, images and information about some of the tools that were used before computers to set up documents for print. And so it's kind of interesting. And then I'm going to actually demonstrate how to do the assignment for you today. It won't take very long. And it's kind of fun. I think it's a fun assignment. So I hope you enjoy it as well and have some fun kind of creating something interesting. And then again, if we have time, which I think we should, I do want to show you, I want to show you, I think probably at least the SAPI website. I do have several websites that I want to give you information on how to get some free samples. But I also want to show you the preparing for print checklist. I know it was in your readings in week 1, but I do want to kind of go over that in more detail with you as well today. So I think that's what we'll work on today. I think we should have plenty of time to do that. So let's go ahead and get started. Announcement-wise, I don't think I have much in here. I did get all of the grades done for week 1. And I did go in yesterday. I noticed there were some people who either resubmitted or turned in some late work, so I did go back in yesterday and get those graded as well. If it was turned in yesterday after, I think, 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, probably has not been graded yet, but I will check again this weekend and see if there's anything that needs to be graded. If you have any questions about any comments that I made or your grade at all, please just contact me. I'm happy to go over that with you. Can you say the book showed Adobe Garamond Pro having one? The book shows Adobe Garamond Pro having one that is not available when you tried. Yeah, I think the book's a little bit out of date as far as that's concerned. Yeah, that's why I actually went through and found the fonts, the most current fonts that I could that work for you, because I know that a lot has changed since that book was written. Yeah, the applications have changed a few times since then. So for that assessment, the book was a little bit out of date. So I do the live sessions for earlier this week posted here, or the YouTube link for it anyway. Can you say it seems that they all have the same one? Yeah, there's like just a few that are used. I think those, like, what are they called? The in here under OpenType, these stylistic sets, I have never been able to get those to work on any of them. I think like fractions works a lot, ordinal works sometimes, superscript superior works a lot, superscript inferior works a lot, sometimes numerator and denominator work, and then I've also gotten proportional old style to work sometimes too, and all small caps.
On Minion Pro, there is a stylistic set that does work.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Set 2.
Oh, okay, set 2, this one right here.
Yeah, anything that doesn't have those
brackets might work.
Brackets, yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
So set 1 and 2 will change it. Set 2 changes it much more than set 1 does.
Okay.
And it's actually kind of cool.
Awesome. Well, that's good to know. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, it's kind of a trial and error thing. There's not, but when you do see them change, some of them are pretty cool, and you can kind of find. I mean, you could definitely see some uses for them. They'd be really cool for, again, posters, flyers, things like that, like maybe a circus theme, or there's definitely some uses for them, but they're very specialized uses, I think. So. Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's interesting to see how it changes. And I do use, I won't, the all small caps is, I take that back. I have used all small caps a couple times. So, I mean, that's kind of one that is good to use for like headers and titles and stuff like that. Okay, so let's, since we're talking about it now, we'll go ahead and take a look at our week 2 work. Hopefully everybody has had a chance to at least get their initial discussion post in for week 2 in regards to digital print versus offset print. So if you have not, make sure you get that in, and then also please make sure you're responding to peer posts each week as well. And try and get them in as soon as possible. The more peer posts we get in, the better discussion we have, and the more information that is exchanged. So we're going to go over our week 2 assignment in a minute, so I'm going to hold off on that. But I do want to review our assessment. So that's what we've been talking about. That is the using the character glyphs for OpenType fonts. And so it's, again, very specific which glyphs you need to be using for this assignment. I did demo that in our Tuesday live session. So essentially what you're going to create a multi-page document, and you're going to utilize only OpenType fonts. And you're going to go into InDesign under the character menu and use the little drop-down menu to and look in the OpenType options, the OpenType glyph options for those OpenType fonts. So you're going to end up utilizing at least 3 different fonts, and you need to have 5 variations over those 3 different fonts. So you might have 2 variations on 2 different fonts and 1 variation on one, or you might do 3 variations on one font and 1 variation on two other fonts. However you want to mix it up is fine with me, as long as you have 5 variations. In addition to that, you're going to need to write at least 250 words explaining the pros and cons of using these expanded glyphs. As I mentioned on Tuesday, you can talk about where they come from, why we use them, what they did to the text that you utilized for your example, when you think you might use them, examples for when you might use them, anything like that can be included in your paper. Your final document should be submitted as a multi-page PDF. I kind of suggested on Tuesday it might be easiest to set it all up in InDesign and then export it as one PDF. It might be simpler, but if you do your paper in Word, you can always save your InDesign document out as a PDF and your Word document as a PDF and combine them in Acrobat, which is fine as well, as long as it's all in one PDF file. Please make sure that you're paying attention to the design elements for your InDesign document. I don't want to see just, don't turn this in with just words on a piece of paper. Add some design elements into it, background, image, frame. You can add some designs so what I suggest doing is, find a quote, find a poem, find a song lyric, something like that that has meaning to you, and utilize that. And that way it's much easier to find some design elements that go along with it. It can be as many pages as you want. If you want each variation on its own page with a design on it, that's fine. If you want, to just have it 3 or 4 pages long, that's fine too. It's up to you. But please make sure you are adding some design elements into it as well. Again, the fonts that I found that these open type glyphs work on are Calibri, Cambria, Letter Gothic Standard, Minion Pro, Myriad Pro, and Palantino Linotype. I did find those 6 that they work on. And of course, the open type glyphs that we want to use, if you open up your character menu or your character box, you can, under this drop-down menu here, the open type glyphs are what we want to use. We don't want to use any of these glyphs. We want to go under open type and find out what of these glyphs work on the open type fonts. Okay? Questions or anything about the assessment before we move on? Okay. All right. So let's go back. For our assignment this week, you're tasked at essentially trying out, as best as we can replicate now, how to sort of paste up a document for print the way we did it before computers and before layout applications and graphic design applications were created, okay? Again, I'm going to demonstrate how to do this from beginning to end. It's not hard. It won't take long, but I do want to show you exactly how I want you to create this document. It's going to be 1 page, and you're going to need scissors, tape, a piece of paper, and either some magazines or mailers or newspapers or whatever. You can also find items online and print them out as well, but you'll have to cut them out and then paste them back up together. You're going to create something like a poster or an advertisement or a flyer, something like that, just on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. And then you're going to figure out how to take a photograph of it or scan it somehow where you can flip the design and actually turn it in backwards, which is kind of how we would, how our negatives would come out when we used to have to shoot negatives to create plates for the offset. So to kind of give you an idea, I wanted to talk a little bit about how the process of printing worked before the advent of computers, and really before we had those design applications on our computers, right? So even after computers were created, they weren't used for design. They weren't used for print. That was still all done by hand. And it was quite the process. So I found, like I said, I got this little Prezi here that I want to show you. And I did not create this. Again, I cannot take credit for this, but I think it's got some really great information in here, so I wanted to share it with you. It's called Graphic Design Before the Computer. And so let me ask you this question before we get started. Have you ever thought about how, I mean, we've been printing, right, for decades. And, you know, decades before computers were even created. So have you ever stopped to think, hey, how did they get all of those individual elements onto one document and get it printed multiple times on a printing press before computers? Has anyone ever done any research on this or thought about this or have any history with this process? Anybody in the classroom? You have seen it done, Phil, okay, and you've worked doing this sort of thing, Miranda? You don't have any history with it, but you did have someone post a link on Facebook with a video that you reposted. Cool. Oh, interesting, Miranda. Awesome. Okay. So I will say, before we get started, I will, you know, my caveat to this is there are certain things in this presentation that I will be able to say, yep, I did that. Yep, I did that. There's a required subject in schools. Interesting. Okay. So there are certain tools from the old school printing, I guess, process that I have used in the field because I worked in the print industry quite some time. Well, let me think. Okay. I was 23 to 22 to 26 when I worked there. I'm 38 going on 39, so however, what was that, like 16 years ago? 14 years ago? And so, and it was a really small print shop. Well, it was a print and direct mail company that I worked for, and it was a really small operation. And we didn't have a ton of money for all of the most up-to-date and I mean, I probably had the nicest computer in the whole building because I had the Mac, and I was the, you know, as the graphic designer, I probably had the most expensive computer in the whole building. And our offset press was a little older, needed a little bit more TLC. Our offset did use the negative to plate technology. So I would have to, because it was such a small shop, no one did just one job in the company. Has anyone ever worked for a really small company where you wear many hats? I did at this company, and so I worked very closely with both our digital and our offset printer. I would work in our mail room, so I knew how to do all of the finishing, the cutting, the folding, the stamping. I knew to run all those machines. I knew how to run the offset. I did work with the offset printer a lot. I used to run his negatives, clean his negatives. I never created the plates, but I would, you know, watch the machine as it was running and whatnot when it was running, which sometimes worked, sometimes didn't. But anyway, so, you know, I understand the process, but not all of it I've even done myself. So, you know, you have to stop and think. You have to kind of marvel in what was accomplished without all of the technology that we have today. I mean, you can look back and see some amazing posters, magazines, even newspapers. Every single week, newspapers were created by hand. And, you know, it would take a team of people to do it, but they were able to do it, and they were able to get it out every single week. And it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing what they were able to do with just a couple of tools in their hands and a printing machine. So let's take a look at some of the things some of the ways that they used to put together these documents. So this is a picture. It's actually, so it's called a layout board. You might also hear it called an art board. Sound familiar? Artboard. Has anyone heard the word artboard before in many of your school? Right. So just like we call our document windows in Illustrator and Photoshop and InDesign our artboards, that's what it was called. It was also, again, it was also called a layout board. And there were these big, huge, they're boards. And this material in the background here is actually sticky. So you could take all of your elements and kind of stick it on the layout board, and you'd have this big, it was a grid. I'll show you. I'm going to kind of forward through here really quick to kind of show you. They would use these layout boards here, and they would stick the layout boards on those big surfaces, and essentially these layout boards were grids to lay out the document. So they would have different layout boards for magazines, for newspapers, for advertisements, for comic books, etc. So they'd have different grid layouts for all of the different types of documents that they would be creating. And they would use these artboards, with these sticky surfaces, to kind of they'd put their layout or grid on. They'd stick it on there, and they'd have all their elements stuck around it. And they would literally take an element, put it somewhere, take another element, put it somewhere else, and use. Usually, back in the old days, they would use rubber cement to paste it on there before we knew the dangers of rubber cement, or some sort of tape or something to stick it on, some sort of glue usually to stick it on to the grid board, to the layout board. And that's how they would design the document. And it gave them the ability to sort of see what their elements were, see where they would fit, kind of move things around as needed. And again, they were using grids all the way. From the beginning of printing, they've been using grids. So that's not a new concept. I know that's something that you guys have learned a lot about during your time in the program. And again, it's something that's tried and true. It's been used for decades in this industry. And that's, it just comes in a different form now than it used to. So here are some of the tools that were used to create the documents. Some of these tools you can kind of see references to in the tools that we use in Photoshop and Illustrator. So, there's paint brushes and pencils. There's they used a lot of it, like X-Acto knives, kind of like your slice tool or your cut and paste. They would use erasers to erase marks off. They would use rulers to know exactly how to lay out or exactly where to lay out things and make sure that they were lined up correctly, kind of like your guidelines. Okay, so if you think about it, really what ended up happening when they created these layout applications that we use today, they obviously wanted to make it similar to the old school process. And of course, they wanted to have tools similar to what we used to use, because you're essentially doing the same thing. You're just doing it digitally as opposed to by hand with paper and glue and pencils. And, it's the same thing. Same tools, just digital as opposed to, I guess, analog maybe would be their physical. I don't know. But certainly they spent a lot of time looking at what designers did by hand and transferring that into the digital world. And this is the layout, what a layout board would look like. This is probably one for like a comic book, I'm going to guess, or it could be a multi-page like magazine layout, something like that. This is what a mechanical paste up with photostats would look like. So you say they eliminated, I can't remember my thing. They eliminated the drafting department and put the ones that could work on computer to do the type of work at any do that type of work at the company you worked at? You lost some people that couldn't do the computer? Absolutely. Yeah, there was, and it happened fast too. It was like overnight. We went from doing it this way to doing a lot of it on computer. And I think it started out, there's a lot of typesetting done on computer first, right? So, there was different ways to do it, and we're going to show you some of the older school ways to do typesetting. But then once, computers came out, that was one of the first things that was utilized in design, was the typesetting process. So we could have somebody sit at a computer or it was typewriter, but then it was computer, and, type it out and then print it, and then we could use that type. So we weren't having to use the old school type setting processes. We could, type it on a typewriter or a keyboard and then print it out on a printer, something like that. And then once, then the internet came around, and it was like, oh, look, I can get images and stuff. And then it was, oh, I've got this paint application I can draw now. Instead of drawing my illustrations by hand, I can draw them on the computer. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. And we went into then, doing basically everything on the computer. But this is what a mechanical paste up with photostats would look like. Essentially what a paste up with photostats is just that. They would take all of the elements that would need to be included in that piece of artwork. So this is probably like a zine, or, well, actually this looks more like a flyer. So Monster Month, prizes, Friday and Saturday night. So that's probably a flyer of some sort, right? It's a raffle flyer. That's what it looks like. And so they would take all the elements. So they've got the logo for the company. They've got, the whole illustration. This is probably all one piece. The Monster Month with the kind of Frankenstein behind it, and the ghost and the tombstones. That's all one illustration. Someone just sat down and drew that. And then they have, you can tell that this, where it says prizes, Friday and Saturday night, is different. So they essentially had this piece of artwork, this background piece of artwork done, added in the prizes, Friday and Saturday night, literally cut it out of another piece of paper and glued it on there. Same thing with the two logos. They cut it off another piece of paper and glued them on there. And so now this is ready to go to a photostat camera and get shot, have a negative created, and then then that goes to the plate maker. They'll create a plate for it, put it on the offset, and run it on the offset. And the photostats are here. So this is what tells the photostat camera operator what size they want it, what, all the settings for his camera, his or her camera, what the size they want it to be, and, what it's going to go on, et cetera, et cetera. So it'd have all its stats for the photostat operator and the printer there for it. So that's what it would look like. This is a photostat camera. This is one of the things that from this presentation that I can say I worked on that. In fact, we had almost that exact model photostat camera at the printing company that I worked for. And the cool, basically the way that it works is you would place the artwork that you were going to take a picture of to use to create the negative down here at the bottom. And you would, set your settings, if you needed to reduce it in size or make it bigger, et cetera. If you needed to increase the contrast on it, et cetera, you would do all of that, with all your settings up here. And you would take the photograph, and it would create a negative. And so the negative would then be backwards, because then you wanted to create the plate backwards. So you would use that negative to create the plate. The plate would actually be backwards as well, so that when it imprinted on the paper, as the paper went over it, over the plate in the offset, it would actually, it's kind of like a stamp, right? So if you think of a stamp, an address stamp, or any sort of stamp that you have, if you look at the actual stamp itself, it's backwards. But then when you stamp it on the piece of paper, it's the correct way. It worked similar to that. So the plates that they use in the offset are actually backwards. So you had one that looked like a giant speed graphic camera on a long track. Okay, cool. And with a big flip compartment for this type of work at one of the photo labs that you were stationed at. Okay, interesting. Yeah. These things are beasts. They really are. And actually this photostat camera, and I don't know, honestly, this is, I mean, like I said, the one I worked with was almost exactly like this. And I know that this particular photostat camera, I don't know if it's this way with all of them. What was interesting to me, having kind of a photography background, was that you didn't actually have to have this in complete black to shoot, because you weren't, instead of taking a negative and creating an image on a piece of paper, you were taking a piece of paper and creating a negative from it. If that makes any sense. So would have to be dark, but it didn't have to be complete pitch black. And then what would end up happening was a lot of times, so the lens would get dirty, the paper itself would have dirt on it. I mean, when we created the negative, it would pick up just anything that wasn't supposed to be on there, right? So whatever piece of paper it was printed on, if it was like a mark on that piece of paper, or the printer left in, the printer that was printed on left an extra mark, or anything like that would get picked up, because it was very sensitive. It would get picked up by that camera, and you would see it on the negative. So part of my job was, first I'd have to shoot the negative, then I'd have to process the negative, get the negative, and take a look at it on a light board. And I'd have to go over it literally with this little pen. I'm going to show it to you. It's in here. Hold on. I'm going to find it. It's in here. There it is. So I'd have to actually go over it with these stat pens. And it's kind of like a dry erase marker almost. And only it smelled really bad, like worse than permanent marker smell. And I would have to put it on a light board, and anywhere where I saw holes in the negative where there was dirt at one point, I'd have to go in and fill in all those little holes so that it wouldn't, because if those holes were there, it would actually print on the piece of paper. So it was very time consuming. I would have to sit and go through and make sure there weren't any places where it was showing up that there was a mark when there shouldn't be a mark. So I'd have to have the piece, have the little artwork next to me and kind of know the artwork well enough to know where there wasn't supposed to be a mark, which, in basic typography documents, that wasn't too hard. Or, if it was, a simple image, it wasn't that hard. But if it was a more complicated image, that could get, you'd have to be really careful not to accidentally mark over artwork that was supposed to be there, because then you have to reshoot the negative and start all over again. It wasn't something you could kind of erase. So. This is, again, just another one of the tools that was used quite a bit in old school printing. This is how they would cut. They used X-Acto knives more than scissors to cut out artwork or typography to actually paste on layout boards. So this is one of the older ways to do typesetting. Has anybody ever seen these press types at all, or worked with the press types before? Miranda, Phil, did you ever see any of these at all? I've seen them before. I never used them, but I've seen them. I've seen sheets of them before. Yeah, they're basically rub-on letters, exactly. So you would essentially used to sell them, Miranda. Okay, so you would buy these sheets of type. Yes, they're like those things that you had in the crafts as kids. Absolutely, exactly the same thing, right? I always say they're kind of like iron-ons almost, if you remember those from the 80s. So you would buy the sheet in a specific font. So this is kind of how, instead of when we're designing online in our design software, we just click up and pick a different font if we want it. Well, if you wanted a specific font for your design back then, you would have to buy it in one of two. Well, originally, the original way you would have to get them was through these, where are they? Through these lead letters. Okay, this is kind of the oldest version of typesetting. And then came along these press typesetting sheets. So you said it stunk that you kept running out of certain letters and you had to keep digging out old sheets. Absolutely. Right, because you would only have a certain amount of these letters. And so you would buy it. They come in different fonts. Like you see up here, it says Helvetica Medium 36 points. So it would be a specific font, and it would be a specific size, and would have all of and they caked they caked rub-ons. Yeah. So you would then, using your ruler, you'd make a guideline for yourself where you wanted that typesetting to go. And you would literally put that piece of paper on and with the burnishing tool, rub that letter off onto your design. So think about that. What if you accidentally put one letter too close to the other letter or too far above your guideline? Like it was so time consuming to do that, right? And so it was never really perfect. And yeah, like Phil said, you'd run out of S's a lot or A's a lot because you use them, and you would have to, go and try and find another sheet where you'd have one A left on it or something like that. So you would go through these pretty quickly. That's just one of the ways that we used to have to do typesetting. If we wanted different, if we didn't want handwritten fonts or the typewriter had, there's, if you were doing it on a typewriter, there's one typewriter font and one typewriter size. Word processors came along and they offered you a little bit more flexibility, but still it wasn't, that there was like two different fonts or something. Then even with the onset of computers, you still only had 3 or 4 fonts. So, it took a while for typography really to kind of catch up. And, once we had computers and then they were able to start creating different fonts on the computer, again, that's one of the first things we used computers for in design, because this was really time consuming and a pain in the you-know-what, and people hated doing it. So as soon as we had computers and we realized, oh, hey, we can create these fonts on computers, people started to do that. But if you wanted, back in the day, if you wanted a different size than a typewriter could make or a different font than a typewriter could make, this is how you were doing it. Pretty cool. This is what's called a proportional scale. So again, when we looked at the photostat camera, and I said, on the side, the photostats would tell you if you needed to reduce, like either enlarge or reduce the size of an image or the size of a print to have it fit correctly on a page. This is one of the ways we used to figure out what percentage to put into the photostat camera to get it to reduce or enlarge, right? Basically the way it works is these inside numbers. So it's 2 wheels and it turns, and the inside number is the size of the original. So what you'd measure the original photo and figure out what the original size was, and then the outside is the size you want it to be. So, and then you would look at your photostats and say, okay, this needs to be, 5x7. And right now it's whatever, 4x6 or something like that. And so you would then match it up. So if it was a 6 and you wanted it to be 4, you'd match up those 2 numbers, and then you would know how much you would want, what percentage to reduce it, to enlarge it in size, and you would put that into your photostat and then your photostat camera, and when it shot it, it would actually make it larger for the negative. Yes. Reduce or enlarge by a certain percent, exactly, by a certain percentage. So that's how that worked. Oh my gosh, I loved these. These were my favorite tools when I first started working in the field. These are letter matching guides. Let me just tell you why this was one of my favorite. I would not have been able to live without this. And I'm sure I used them differently than they were originally meant to be used. But what would happen for me, because again, digital design was still, it wasn't in its infancy. I would say it was probably in its toddler stage when I first started working in the field, right? I was kind of a toddler at the time. We had the applications, but one of the biggest problems I would run into is I would have clients come to me all the time, and they would come to me with a PDF or just an actual physical print of their design and say, well, I can't get a hold of my graphic designer anymore, or this is all my graphic designer gave me, or whatever, or they did it in this other application that you don't have access to, or whatever. And I would literally have to recreate their artwork so that they could make changes to it. Okay, so they would have this original PDF and they'd say, well, our address has changed. I need to change my address. So I could use some of the original artwork. I could scan it in. I could clean it up for like the photographs and stuff. But then all the typesetting I would have to recreate. And this made it so much easier than trying to guess. I would actually have their printed copy, and I would lay it up against these letter matching guides, and I would know exactly what size type I needed to use. I also had a font book actually as well that I could go through and kind of because, again, this was back when fonts didn't play nice. So let's say their designer created on a PC and I was working on a Mac. Well, I wouldn't have that exact same font, but I had a font book and I could go through and see what font was closest to the original font. And that's how I would recreate things. I would use my letter matching guides to figure out what size. I would use my font book to figure out what font and would work the best. And then I would, use whatever artwork I could from their original and kind of piece it back together online and recreate it. It was still a lot of work, but a lot less work than trying to paste it together. And again, because my other choice would be that I would try a font and font size. I'd print it out. I'd compare it to the original and go, nope, I need to get bigger. Change the size again, print it back out. Nope, still has to go bigger. So this was invaluable tools for me. I used it a lot. I used it all the time. Again, so lead letters. This was kind of the original typesetting. Lead letters. Lead letters. That seems vaguely familiar to me. The word lead with typography. Where have I heard this term before? Anyone? Lead? Ring a bell to anyone? Lead letters. Lead. Anyone? Leading. Right. Leading. So yeah, and that's where actually that term came from. So you'll notice that on these examples that they have all these different lead letters have different spaces on the bottom and on the top. So these, like the N and the T, have a lot of leading space on the bottom, and this one has a lot of leading space on the top. And this is how we used to space out our letters. We would use all lead letters. Again, they came in all different types of fonts, all different sizes. I actually just bought, I'm still trying to figure out what to do with them, but just for the fun of it, I found a lot on eBay of some lead letters. They're really, really small ones though. They're kind of the size of, some of them are a little bit bigger than typewriter size, but about that same size. But I mean, they would come huge, right? You think about if you needed to make a poster or a banner or something, these lead letters would come really big or really, really small, and you would have to kind of match them up. You would have to have the entire alphabet in the size and font that you wanted. Yes, they were measured in picas. That's correct, Miranda. And they would have extra lead either on the top or the bottom to adjust the spacing between the lines of text, of lines of letters that you would put together. So that's kind of where that term leading comes from. But they would be used again sort of like a stamp. So they'd be laid out, and you'd put ink on them, and you'd stamp them on a piece of paper, and okay, there's your line of text right there. You'd literally take your X-Acto knife and cut it out and paste it on your layout board, and there you go. There's your header right there. That's how they create it. Okay, so this is kind of a way old school way to do it.
Sarah.
Yes, sir.
You saw that picture that I posted in the assignment of the old letter cabinet, the font cabinet.
In your assignment? Or?
Well, assessment, whichever one we did on the print shop.
I did, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was actually, as I put in there, he purchased that from a funeral home.
Yeah.
Who had a press that did up the service cards instead of sending out to a printer.
Those things are expensive now.
Oh, he could get a pretty penny on eBay if he wanted to, but he doesn't want to part with it.
No, it's kind of a nostalgic thing for those of us who've sort of been in the print industry for a really long time. Of course, don't get me wrong, I never used them, but they were around. I would kind of wish, I wish I had known the company that I worked for went out of business maybe 3 or 4 years after I moved on. And I kind of wish I had known they were going out of business when they did, because they had the print shop itself had been in business long enough that they had a whole bunch of those lead letters just in a box. If I had known what those things were going to be worth at one point, I would have been like, can I have those? But they had all, they had different press parts and just tons of, in fact, letter matching guides that I was telling you about, I actually found those in the basement near the press one time. They weren't originally mine as the designer. I was just kind of scrounging around looking at things, and because I mentioned in the comments on your assessment, Phil, that it's nice to see that the state at which print shops are kept haven't changed much. And I will tell you that when I was, the print shop that I worked at it was just a shambles. There was just stuff everywhere. Because there is so much still to the process that, you find tools and parts and ink and just all sorts of stuff everywhere. And so, when I was bored, I would literally just go down to the basement and just go rummage through stuff. And that's where I found my letter matching guides. I was like, oh, I'm taking these are mine, I'm using them. And I did, and they came in really handy. But you would just kind of find stuff laying around. And I did find some of those lead letters, a big box of them. They're really expensive now. You can get, I am a snoop. But I learned a lot doing it. It was a learning. I was learning. I was curious. But yeah, they're expensive now, especially the big ones, and to get a full set. So if you were to try and find a full, set of one particular, like, A through Z and all the numbers for a particular font in a particular size could cost you hundreds of dollars. So they are really expensive. So, here's our good old-fashioned rubber cement. How many people remember this stuff? Can you remember the smell of this stuff? My grandmother used to have this at her house. That's what we played with. That's how we pasted things as kids. She'd give us paper and old magazines, and we'd cut things out and paste it together with rubber cement. And it is not good for you, Miranda. That stuff is like toxic. Yeah, you don't want to spend too much time. People got cancer from that stuff, I think. It's not good. And then, of course, there's this rubber cement remover. Look, it's kind of like an eraser, but it would actually, so if you had extra rubber cement that would come out from underneath your images, you would use that to remove it so it didn't show up in the photostat camera. Yeah, that stuff's not good anymore, though. There's the stat pen. So these, the silver correction pens and the stat pens, they'd be used to correct the negatives. Any imperfections in the negatives. T-square and triangle, those were used to basically for your guideline, like your guidelines are used in Photoshop and Illustrator today. So they would take them and they would draw out their own guidelines on the paper to figure out where the text needed to go, what needed to line up where and how, etc. Pinholes, oh Lord, pinholes were a pain, yeah. Okay, Pantone color guide. Who has seen one of these? Okay, so and I'm actually going to show you, I have a link to the Pantone, so they still sell these Pantone color guides. This is another one of those things we used to have, we used to have like 6 or 7 of them just laying around the print shop, right? Those things go for like $400, $500, $600 depending on which one you want. And they're not cheap at all. And what these are, they're like paint chips, like the paint chips you find at your Home Depot or whatever, but they're all the Pantone colors that are available. And they will show you exactly how that color is going to print out in that Pantone color on the offset. A couple of things with these. A, they're extremely expensive. B, if you ever get your hands on one, keep it in a dark place, because these Pantone guides, they will fade if you don't. So like we had a special drawer that we kept all of ours in, and we would take them out, but you had to remember to put them back. If our printer saw that you had left it out, you were in huge trouble because those things were super expensive. And again, you wouldn't get that if you let it fade, you wouldn't be able to show your client the exact true color, and then they would get their print back and they'd say, but it's not exactly the same as the Pantone swatch that you showed me. You sent a message to a buddy of yours that still works for the print company and asked if they happen to find one laying around. That could they send it to you? Yeah, because they're great resources. I mean, you can sort of see the colors online on Pantone's site, but of course it's not the same, right? You can kind of get an idea of what the color is going to look like, but depending on what screen you're using, what monitor you're using or what screen you're using to look at it on, it's going to look different. So that's why they create these swatches. So you can see exactly what it's going to look like on paper when it prints with that ink, exactly the same. And these are still used, as far as I know, these are still used to this day when picking Pantone colors. These are what offset printing plates look like. These are actually relatively newer ones. They're more current ones. And actually, these are not the plates. These are technically, well, this is a plate. This is a plate right here. But these pictures over here are press checks. So they're color separation press checks. So this is showing you everything that's going to be on yellow, everything's going to be on magenta, blue, black, etc. Or sorry, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. I should say that right. So this is what a finished mechanical basically a paste up would look like, and it's ready to be shot on a photostat camera. You can actually see, I don't know if you can see on your screen, but especially right here, you can see the edges of where they cut out this part and pasted it on there. So essentially what would happen when they'd create these comic books, a comic book artist would draw this background image, okay? So they would have a copy of so primarily the title of the comic book would stay the same. So you can see this is a cutout as well. And then they would take and create artwork on top of that. So the specialized artwork for that particular episode, or whatever it's called, that particular, what's not the book? Yes, that particular comic book. And then any extra things that needed to be added would be pasted up on it. So, you know, any special all new Spidey faces, the Mighty Avengers and the Hulk, that would be pasted on. The price of the comic book would then be pasted on. Sometimes the number, which number book it was, would be pasted on. So any extra stuff that the creator wanted added on after the original artwork was done would then just be created by hand, cut out, and then pasted onto that final piece of artwork. And this is ready to go and get shot by the photostat camera and used to create a negative to get printed on. Edition, thank you. That's the word I couldn't think of, Miranda. And then this is kind of what it would look like afterwards. So, you know, it would be this kind of what a final print would look like. This is a color version, whereas this would be all done in one color, unless you separated it out. But this is kind of an example of what the finished product would look like. So that, like something like this would be probably pasted on there. This would be pasted on there. This whole tab would probably be pasted on here. This, again, this is that same, it would be the same title on every single one. And then that's like one, that's another piece of artwork. Questions, comments, anything like that before we move on and take a look at our assignment for this week? So again, I just kind of wanted to sort of, you know, share that with you. It's kind of interesting. Oh, I wanted to show you the Pantone swatches really quick. I don't know why, but my Firefox is not working correctly. Let's see. I know I'm here somewhere. I have. Look it up. Okay, so here's their official site. Go away. Let's see. Under shop. That's just the guides. Here. Okay. So these are some of their smaller books, right? So there's, there's just a bunch of different ones that you can find. This is their Color Bridge Coded, Color Bridge Uncoded, solid chips. So this is coded and uncoded in the books with solid chips on it. So show me any other. So these are tear out chips on replaceable 3-ring binder pages. 1,755 solid Pantone matching system colors. 2-book set, coded and uncoded for $300. And not as bad as they used to be. I want you to know that I created all the graphics in my assessment this week. I don't think I stole the images. Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, so these are they have just their extended gamuts. I mean, look at that. So these, there's all different tones and different, stealing, no way. So this is kind of what the Pantone books look like, right? So they have metallics, they have pastels, they have neons, they have coded, they have uncoded. So if you were to think about trying to get all of these books so you could show potential clients or customers all the different Pantone colors that are available at $200 to $300 a pop per sample book, just think about that. So so they're really expensive, but there's some really cool stuff on their site if you're interested in taking a look. You could do, there is in here, there's like a color finder in here somewhere. Ooh, there's a color of the year. Is their color of the year this year is Rose Quartz and Serenity. This is two colors joined together. Not my color scheme, but so there's some really cool stuff on their website. You can kind of take a look at. Give you ideas for colors. So there's like a fall color palette for 2016, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, that's not loading for me, Miranda. I don't know why. It is. Yeah. So, all right. Well, let's take a quick break, and then I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna demonstrate the assignment for you, and then I want to show you again. I want to show you those other two things, and then we will be done. Sound good? I have 2 after. Is 8 minutes enough? You want to come back at like 10 after? Sound good? Okay, is everybody back or still here? Either or. Okay, Phil's back. Back. Okay, awesome. Well, we are going to get started working on our assignment. Or I'm going to show you, I guess, how to do the assignment, talk a little bit more about it. Okay, so for our week 2 assignment, we're going to practice doing this the old school way. You're going to take an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, scotch tape, and create it says a sales flyer. Okay, it can be an advertisement, it can be a flyer, it can be a poster. I really don't care what it is as long as it's on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. And it has the following: at least one photo or illustration. Now, let me talk about all of these elements for you real quick, because this is where people start to get a little confused sometimes. The photo or illustration can be gotten a variety of different ways. Your photo or illustration can be from a magazine that you cut out, from a flyer that you cut out, from something that you find on the internet that you print out and cut out. It can be something that you draw. It can be something that you draw in Illustrator or in Photoshop and print out and cut out, okay? For the illustration, you can hand draw it, but you must hand draw it and then cut it out and paste it on your final piece of paper. In other words, don't, well, that's kind of, I mean, it's good. I could be convinced otherwise, but I don't want you to draw your picture or illustration on the actual piece of paper. Okay, you can draw it in Illustrator or Photoshop and print it out. You can draw it on a piece of paper and cut it out and print it and paste it. Or you can, again, find something in a magazine or online that you print and cut out, okay? However you want to find that illustration or photo. Then it must have a title and some text. Now, let's talk about the title. For the title, you must cut out each individual letter for your title and tape it back on to the piece of paper. Your entire document is going to be reversed, Kim, but I'm going to show you how to do that very easily, okay? So don't worry about that yet. So each of your letters, each of your individual letters for your title, only for your title, needs to be cut out and then taped back on to your piece of paper. So I don't want you, and let me show you what I mean. Everybody see me okay? Okay. So let's say you want to use good morning as your title. You would need to cut out the G, the O, the D, each individual letter, and then tape it back onto your piece of paper, okay? Don't just tape out, or don't just cut out good and then morning and then tape it back on like that. You have to do for the title each individual letter, okay? For the extra text that needs to be in here, so you need to have a title and then you need to have some additional text. For the additional text, you can cut out together. So for instance, for mine that I'm gonna do for you, I'm gonna use this. Okay, and I cut it all out. This is going to be my additional text that I use. I might use more than that, but for the text that's not the title, you can cut it out as one big group of words and tape it back on that way. Okay, so it's just for the title that you have to have the each individual letter cut out. Please do not, whatever you do, do not draw your letters. That will not be accepted. I will give you a 0. You have to either type them in an application and print them out and cut and tape them back on, or you have to find it in a magazine or something, or find it online and print it out and cut it out, but do not draw it. Do not hand draw your type. No hand drawing the type. Everybody understand that? No hand drawing the type. You can hand draw your image, but you cannot hand draw your type, okay? And I want you to practice with pasting those words back on and making them, using rulers or whatever you have available to you to put it back together in line. Who's calling me? Okay. All right, so here are some ads that I got out of a magazine this morning before class. Okay. I am going to use this image as my main image. And let's see, what title do I want to use? I think I'm going to use start with a good morning. And then I'm going to use this as some additional text, and this is some additional text. Okay? That's what I'm going to use to create my advertisement. So I'll have all my elements in there. Okay? So I've got my advertisement, got my scissors. So I'm mixing the ads. Exactly. That's all I'm doing. And again, you can find all of your elements online. You can create your elements and print them out, or you can find them in magazines, mailers, etc. I don't have an X-Acto knife. Here is the other thing that I want you to do. I want you to make sure that you're using tape. Don't use glue, don't use a glue stick, don't use rubber cement, use tape. Here is why I want you to use tape. Because I can see it. When you take a picture of it, I can see where exactly you put that tape. So I will be able to tell that that's right, no sniffing glue. I will be able to tell that each one of your individual letters are taped on there. Okay? So that's how I know that you're not cheating, is you use tape so that I can tell where you taped it. Okay? So, and I won't do this whole thing, but I'm gonna get my image out. I'm gonna kind of change the shape of my image a little. I'm literally just cutting a picture out of a magazine. Okay? Got my picture. Got my paper. Got my tape. Okay? And I am going to tape my picture onto my piece of paper. See? Then I've got my title. Where's my title go? Title. Okay. So I'm going to say, starts with a good morning, but for the sake of time, we're just going to do the word good. Okay, but if I were going to do the whole thing, I would do starts with a good morning, and then I would put on there, what was it? You love them like family, feed them like family, and then more protein, less amazing, more protein, less amazing, less sugar, amazing taste, and then I'd probably put a picture of the dog food. Okay? Wish the camera view was bigger. Sorry. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm going to first, again, I'm not gonna do all my words because that you'd have to sit here and watch me play with scissors and tape for 45 minutes if I were gonna do this whole title for you. But just for illustrative purposes, I'm gonna do the word good. Okay, so I've got the whole word good. I cannot tape it like this. I have to do each individual letter. Okay, so I'm gonna go in here and I'm gonna pull out each one of my letters. And probably what you want to do, what I would suggest doing is, and I couldn't find my ruler. I have one somewhere, but I couldn't find it. If you don't have a ruler, you could just get a pencil and take another piece of paper and lay it down where you want your title to go, straight, and draw yourself a guideline to use very lightly with your pencil, so that you can erase it later. Can you see that? Okay, so I've got my little guideline here where I want my header to go, okay? I've got all my individual letters, right? And I'm gonna just place them along my guideline that I drew to make them as straight as possible. Okay, let's see how good I am. G. There's my O. O. And my. And you can cut out the letters a little bit more so that you can, I just kind of cut mine out really quickly. You can be a little bit more specific. Okay, so I've got it all along my guideline here. I could do, you know, put the word morning there after it, something like that, right? And I've got my other text that I wanted to add. Remember, I don't have to do each individual letter of these. Do you need to mix ads, or could you just recreate one single one? You can recreate one single one, but again, you have to, you know, cut out everything on the title. And, you know, don't make it super easy ad. Like, don't make it one picture, one word title or anything, you know what I mean? Like, put some effort into it. Yeah, so similar to laying out for stencil, absolutely. So I've got this text that I want to add to it. And add that on. No, and then I've got, let's use this. So let's pretend that my header says, well, I'll actually put morning on there, but I won't do it in each individual letter. Let's just pretend that I did each individual letter of morning. For the sake of time, I'm cheating, but don't tell. Okay. And I'm going to add this. That's my logo. Okay. So what did I do wrong on my advertisement that you don't want to do? Went off the page because I didn't pay attention. I just put the word good on there before I put the word morning on there. So you make sure that you take your piece, before you start taping things down like I did, make sure you lay it all out first. Take your piece of paper, put all your elements, you know, cut all your elements out first, lay it all out the way you want it. Make sure you know where you want everything to go, and then start taping it so you don't have the same problem that I did, okay? Where it went off the page because this should be centered, right? Because it's, sorry, it froze on me. Because those are the sort of things that I'm going to be looking for, right? So I'm going to be looking for, not only did you have all the elements on here, but I want you to do a much better job than I did designing it, okay? So I think where my logo is good. I think I have a good picture. I think if this were centered with some text and some picture and the picture, I think that it would be okay. Best work I've ever done? No. Yes, you can draw margins around the edges. Anywhere where you draw, and when you can draw margins, you can draw guidelines, but if you draw guidelines, make sure you erase them afterwards. But just make sure that that I can see where you cut out and taped your letters like that. Make sure that I can see the tape. All right, so I've got it done. Now I have to get it onto my computer, and it needs to be backwards, right? Okay. So there's three ways you can do this. If you have a scanner at home, you can scan it and flip it, right? So if you have a document in, we'll just do it and just, well, it's easier. I think it's easier in Illustrator. I think it's easier to flip things in Illustrator, but I just like using Illustrator better, so. So let's say I can do, again, I can scan it and flip it in Illustrator, or I can take a picture of it with my cell phone, send it to myself via email, open it up in Illustrator and flip it. How do you flip things in Illustrator? Super, super easy. I'm just going to place this. Okay. Form. There you go. Yeah, you can do it in Photoshop. You can do it in InDesign. You can do it in Illustrator. Illustrator is easier for me. So that's all. You just place it in. You go to Object, Transform, Reflect. Make sure it's vertical, 90 degrees. Click OK, and you flipped it. And that's it. Now your document is flipped, right? So it's easy. That's how easy it is, right? And so if you've got, like I said, you can scan it into a scanner. You can take your cell phone camera, your cell phone, try and take a picture of it, email it to yourself, place it in Photoshop, Illustrator, whatever you want to use, flip it, save it out as a JPEG. JPEG, what do you say? JPEG or... that doesn't say. So you can say, I mean, you can save it as a JPEG or a PDF. I really don't care. One of the two. It's fine. Because it doesn't specify, so either one. And in fact, it may be that the campus view is only set up to do one or the other, so I would probably start with just a PDF, because you know mostly PDFs will upload fine, so you can save it as a PDF and you're done. So you just copy and paste it all on there, or copy and tape, not paste, copy and tape, or cut and tape onto an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, your entire ad or flyer or poster, whatever you're creating. Again, you can take a picture of it with your camera, you can scan it, and then take it into Photoshop or Illustrator and flip it, and then just save it out as a PDF. Or there's the other thing that you can do. You should all have Photo Booth installed on your computers. Well, here's the cool thing about Photo Booth. It actually flips the image when you take a picture. So I can use Photo Booth, and I can just kind of come and make sure you and take the picture of it. Okay. Obviously, I'm in it too, but I can export this. Desktop, and then take it into, I can turn this off, hold on. So then I can, use my screen still okay? Everybody can? Yes? Length of paper to write. Hold on one second, I don't know if it specifies. Okay. Computer could like stop working at any moment because I have everything open right now. But see it works. Okay, so there. See that? I took the picture with Photo Booth and it flipped it for me, right? So that's kind of the benefit to using Photo Booth is you don't have to do anything but then crop it. And you just open it up in Photoshop. Yeah, your fingers are going to be in there. I'm not worried about that. I don't care. As long as it's not covering up any of your artwork, I really don't care. That'll be fine. I mean, you might want to hold it a little bit better than I did, but hey, whatever. There. You can turn that in, okay? It's got everything I need. I can go in here and I can see all your tape marks in here. See that right there? I can see that but it flips everything for you. So, I know it's a new computer. It should be able to handle it. We talked about this a couple mods ago. It's still not fixed. Don't want to talk about it. Yeah, so that's kind of the cool thing about if you use Photo Booth to take the picture of the ad that you created, it flips it for you. So you don't have to then take that extra step, but you do have to crop it. But I mean, it's a half dozen of one, six of the other. So either you take a picture or scan it and flip it, or you take a picture of it with photo booth and crop it. Length of paper to write. I don't think it says, let me look here. Write a brief paper to go with it. A brief paper to me is like a page to 2 pages. So there's not a specific length. It's going to be more about what you write. So I want you to talk but basically it's the length. I'm not worried about the length as much as I am the content. So the content of your paper should really be talking about what the process was like, what you learned, what you liked, what you didn't like, what you thought about the old school process of printing, that sort of thing. Okay, you can talk about the difficulties of it or any of those kind of things. But since it's not really a research paper, I mean, it shouldn't be that long. Yeah, about what a discussion post would be. Exactly. Yeah, that's fine, Kendra. Again, it's more about the content. I want to see that you put some effort into it, and you can talk about what you did and what worked, what didn't work, that sort of thing. So very quickly, I want to go kind of sort of backwards. We didn't go over this in as much detail last week because the assignment was just very complicated, and I didn't want to really add too much more into the conversation. But I did want to bring this to your attention. Hopefully you saw this in week 1 in your readings and tools, and you went over it, at least for yourself. But this is some really great content to keep. I suggest copying it and pasting it into a Word document and saving it on your desktop and making sure that you keep this and reference this anytime you are going to send a file for print anywhere. Your husband thought saving old magazines was crazy. Oh, I don't even talk. My husband, it drives him crazy. I have boxes of, well, I just keep the cooking ones because there's fun recipes in it. That's all I keep. Oh, and then the photography ones. I do keep the photography ones too. But this file here is, again, it's a really great reference for when you're going to create a file that's going to go to a printer and print. You want to reference this and double check and make sure that you go through these steps before you send anything to a printer. And it's always good, too, to have a second set of eyes look at your work before you send it to a printer. I actually always have somebody proof any of my work before I send it to a client, or I do a lot of volunteer work for organizations in my area. I do graphic design work for them as a volunteer, and I always have somebody proof my work. Always, even if it's not going to be printed, even if it's just an electronic version, because I personally am notorious for spelling things wrong, because you end up looking at a file for so long. I always say you could spell your name wrong and wouldn't even notice, right? Because you know what it's supposed to say, and so your brain sees what it's supposed to say as opposed to what it actually does say. So the very first thing on this list is extremely important, especially if you don't have someone, regardless of if you have someone that's going to proof it for you, do this first. Make sure you run a spell check on all of your documents before you send it anywhere, okay? In InDesign, it is, I have to find it again. Edit spelling, check spelling. It's that easy. And it runs just very, very similar to the Word spell check does, okay? Because in applications like InDesign and Illustrator, there is the spell check option in there. And they will go through and check your document just like Word does. But unlike Word, it's not going to underline something if it thinks it's spelled wrong. It doesn't care if you spelled it wrong or not. So it's really up to you to remember to run your spell check. You need to check your colors. Make sure all of your mixed colors are CMYK, and that all of your images are CMYK. Make sure that you remove any unnecessary color swatches from the panel. Add unnamed colors to the swatch panel using the swatch contextual manager. I'll show you how to do that. I think when we go over our final assessment, I'm going to show you how to do that. Spot colors should be identified as spot colors. So they, in the color panel, they should be identified as spot colors, and they need to be named as such. So make sure you rename them as well. For your, you always want to check your links also. Make sure they're CMYK. You've changed them from RGB to CMYK. Make sure that the images are 300 PPI. So make sure that the resolution is good enough for print. And then your Photoshop images should either be TIFF or Photoshop documents. It says never as a JPEG, but you can use JPEGs if that's all you have available to you. But if you've created the photo yourself or you've taken the photo yourself, save it out as a Photoshop document. That way you don't lose any of your transparencies or technical blends or masks or anything like that. That's fine, Kendra, no problem. Yes, and make sure the link is showing up. Make sure that your links, so you will, when you package your file, it will tell you if there's any links that are missing. But let's, I don't know why you'd send it without packaging it, but let's say, for instance, you were going to, you would have to go in and grab all your links and make sure that all those links were attached, that they were available, and they didn't have to go in and reattach them. Your fonts, make sure that your fonts are free of any problems when you go to package it. Again, it will give you an error if there's any issues. And convert any trouble fonts to outlines. So here's how you can kind of get away. So I remember I told you, it was either earlier this week or last week, that I was warning you about fonts that were screen-only fonts. Here's one good way to get around that. If you want to use a font and it doesn't have the print files in there, you can use the font and then change them to outlines. And in fact, we used to do that with all our fonts before fonts were cross-platform compatible. And it's still kind of, if you're using a specialty font, it's not an open type font, but a specialty font, it's always a good idea to change those to outlines as well, just to be on the safe side in case that font doesn't work on whatever machine your printer is using. It's just kind of good practice. And then finally, check your bleeds and your marks. We're going to go over bleeds and printer's marks next week when I prepare you for your final assessment, because you will need to utilize those in your final assessment. Hopefully you've seen them before and gone over them in InDesign as well, but we'll review them. You want to make sure that you're bleeding, here's the thing. So the standard is kind of 0.25 inches off the document for a bleed, but you always want to check with your printer before you set those, because they may have certain specifications of their own that they want you to utilize. So Kim, you said the printer that you visited didn't want bleeds, right? So again, always, this is where communication with the printer comes in so handy and is so important, because they may not want bleeds, they may have a specific guideline for bleeds, and a lot of online printers will actually have those available to you online, all their specifications. If you send a PDF document, wouldn't that print out right, even if, wouldn't that print out right?
Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. I was trying to ask your question. That's fine.
Meaning the font itself. If you have a font, a specialty font, and you're doing business cards up, if you send a PDF file, that font will still print out correctly.
As long as it looks correct in the PDF. Check your PDF, because that's, when you save it out as a PDF, a lot of times the font will change. In other words, if it doesn't have its screen fonts, or if its screen fonts there are just certain fonts that people have created, just random people have created, and they either don't know how to set up the print fonts. So the process of creating a PDF it's treated similar in the file as the process to print it. And so you will find that certain fonts will not save correctly in a PDF either. So always double check that. That's all I'm saying, is that, as long as it looks fine on the PDF, yes. But always make sure you check that, because you'll see little sneaky things too. Like I've seen fonts that have been created by people, and they're almost, like the shape of the letters is perfect, but sometimes the kerning or the leading will get messed up in print. Like sometimes those don't transfer correctly into PDFs or to print. And so you have to watch things like that. So always double check your PDF. Don't just save it out as a PDF and send it to your printer. Always open it up and double check it. Because as long as it looks fine on the PDF, yes, it will print fine. But it can get messed up even in that process as well. Just FYI. Yeah, so always, again, bleeds and marks, those are you will have to do them for your final assessment, but some printers don't want them. So always check with your printer and find out exactly how they want you to save the document. Find out what, so your printer said to outline all fonts. Yeah, see, so I mean, each printer is going to be different. Depends on their capabilities, the types of machines that they have, and how they're how their workflow goes. I mean, each printer is going to have their own workflow, and they're going to want your files to match up with their workflow, because anything that doesn't match up with their workflow means more work for them, means less prints that they can run, which means less money they can make. So they'll kick it back to you, and they'll say, nope, try it again. I'm not even going to run it. They're not going to play with it. They'll say, nope, no thank you, don't want it. All right, very quickly, I think we have just enough time. I wanted to show you the SAPI website. So these are the standards that I think Kim was you that was talking about them. I showed you standard 5, I think, in week 1. Those are the books. Actually, let me go grab mine. Hold on. It's in the other room. Bear with me 1 sec. I'm running, I promise. I'm coming. No worries. All right. So, okay. Number 6. Yeah, number 6 is the new one. I have to get that still. The binding one. So these standards, these books, let me, I wonder if they have 6 still. Oh, number 5. I'll let you watch the video for this really
I'm Kit Heinrichs. I'm the principal of Studio Heinrichs, San Francisco. The Standard Series is something that is an educational series that SAPI Paper has put on that really talks to designers and print professionals about special printing techniques.
When Kit and I started the Standard Project, we wanted to create something that people considered a keeper. At the end of the day, we wanted this piece to be something where you see it on designers' bookshelves when you go into their office.
The latest edition of the Standard Series is Volume 5, Special Effects. The Standard 5 was one of those great combinations of really 3 things. You've got a great client, SAPI Paper, you've got a design firm, Studio Heinrichs, and you also have the real catalyst for it, 826. And so those 3 things come together, and you're able to create something that you'd never be able to do if you lost any one of those.
826 National is a network of creative writing and tutoring centers located in 8 cities across the country.
They're doing wonderful things in these chapters around the country, and they do them all in these interesting storefronts.
The storefront really is a front to get kids involved and thinking about, what's going on in that pirate store. So here we've got a pirate store. In New York, we've got a superhero supply store. Ann Arbor is a robot and repair store. So each of the stores has a different theme in each of the cities, but it really is a front to get people really excited and engaged with our organization.
And we thought we could actually take each one of those stores and make it a chapter in the book and be able to bring some of the artwork and photography and so on to articulate what each one of those concepts is about. Just was a perfect idea.
When we started looking for a subject that would encompass all these very quirky techniques, that seemed like the one subject that could handle it was 826, because it had a great deal of variety and yet it was cohesive. And the subjects were really funny. The pirate store, for instance, they sell peg legs, they sell eyeballs, they sell mermaid bait.
Imagination thrives at 826, both in the stores and for the students that go there. And so it was a great opportunity to feature their story and to use their stores as the visuals for the Standard 5.
This is a book that you pick up and stroke. You turn the pages and you run your hand over the page first before you even look at anything else.
To see all the things that they could do with paper and special effects and how they could use each of the different concepts to do something different. You know, the spy coat has so many indentations on it and the footprint in the sand, and that you could do so many things with paper.
Some of the techniques are relatively subtle in that they are varnishes or they're raised coatings or other things along the way. But we were trying to explain to designers how they can use these things. They're not always expensive. That's one of the nice things about it. It's just knowing that it's there and how you might be able to use it. I may be prejudiced when I talk about Standard 5, but I think it's one of the most effective things certainly that I've done, and I think it is actually.
Okay, so I will show you very quickly. This is the Standard 5 that they just talked about. And that's what it means. Basically just a book that shows all, and I showed you this, I think, in week 1, shows all the specialty printing techniques, right, that they can do. It has all different stuff in here. I'm trying to find, I didn't even notice I'm trying to find that spy coach. There it is. Okay. So it's kind of got, I don't know if you can tell, but it's like got raised, kind of like got embossing on it. You can see that. But anyway, so this is one of the things that I've gotten from them. The Yeti actually has the fur on it. The other one that I have number 2. So they're not all, you can't get all of them still. I think you can still get 5. I got 2 not too long ago. 6 just came out. So 2 is managing color. Okay, so it has all these different color options for you in here, and how they work together and that sort of thing, right? And then, but they don't just have these standards. They have all sorts of things. I showed you, I think, on week 1, the folding poster that I have. It shows you all the different folding options available. I also got, I mean, you know, you can pick up all sorts of fun stuff from them. And it's all free. They send it to you. Got this cool poster. Cool illustration on it. Anyway, so the way that you get all this cool material, and again, these are really great, great things to have just at your desk as reference for yourself, and as also to show, you know, clients and customers. The way that you go about doing this is you order, it's under order paper. Okay, so you're going to go to sappysamples.com. Then you have to register. I'm trying to remember what my login was. I think that was it. I'll have to look it up, but basically you go in. Hold on, let me see if I can figure it out real quick. That wasn't it. I can never remember what it was. Yeah, I can't remember. I'm gonna have to send an email and get like my username and password. But anyway, you go in and they just have a list of everything that you can get. And I think you can get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 things at a time. So every, I think 60 or 90 days you can go on. It's 5 per month, right? So for every month you can go on and pick 5 things, and they just ship it to you for free. And they're great quality. They come really fast. And again, you could, if you liked like number 5 and a friend was like, oh, I need to get one of those books, you can order them one next month. I mean, they don't care what you're ordering as long as you only order 5 pieces per month. So you just kind of want to go online about once a month. I've not been good at that, obviously, since I haven't gotten the wall calendar yet. It's been a long time since I've logged in, honestly, and I know I'm kind of behind. I have to get a couple more of the standards, but yeah. So you go on. You want to try and go on every couple of months or every month or so, and see what they have available. And you can pick 5 things every month, and they send it. They send it to you for free. So from their website, you just want to look for the little link that says Sappy Samples. And, click on that, and then it'll take you right there. You register. If you're a new user, you register, and you just go from there. It's really easy. But it's a great reference site for you. Any questions, comments, concerns, anything in regards to either your week 1 or week 2 projects that you want to talk about before we are done today? Any questions, anything you need clarification on, anything you need me to show you, anything like that? Good? Feels good? Kim, Miranda, you good? Miranda, did you see my email that I sent you yesterday? I think I asked you that, but I don't remember if you answered me. So far, so good, Kim. All right, well, let me know if you need anything or if you have any questions. Again, send me email, whatever. And otherwise, I look forward to seeing what you guys come up with for your old school printing technique. Yeah, let me know if you need anything, okay? Otherwise, I will see you back here next Tuesday. Have a good rest of your week and weekend.
Hey, Sarah.
Yes, sir.
Did you ever hear of How Magazine?
No, I don't think so.
It's howdesign.com.
Oh, yeah, I have. Yeah.
My son, for Christmas, got me a 1-year subscription on that, and I got my first issue, and it's pretty interesting.
I haven't subscribed to it, but I've used some of the stuff that they have online quite a few times as references. Yeah, it's a great magazine.
Yeah, it was kind of it's funny because I got a thing in the mail about renewing my subscription. It's like, wait a minute, what do you mean renew? I haven't even got it.
That's funny. Well, and magazines are so funny because I have a couple of subscriptions to magazines that I stopped reading them, so I just let them lapse, and they keep sending me the magazines, and they also keep sending me a bill, and I'm like, but I didn't renew it, so I'm just not going to pay you. And
there you go.
But I keep
like I typed on there, I've got old issues of Outdoor Photography and American Photographer.
They're hard to get rid of.
I will not cut those up.
No. Oh, no. Well, and they're good references. They're good inspiration pieces. So.
Well, it's also that most everything that I was getting, it was back during film.
Yeah. Well.
So they were just starting to slide into digital when I had to stop the subscriptions.
Yeah, now everything is digital. I mean, everything is digital. They don't even talk about 35mm anymore. Poor redheaded stepchild of photography.
Now, did you know what I meant by a speed graphic camera?
I've not ever worked with them before, but
they're called the old press cameras. That had the front plate come down. You had the bellows, and you use like 4x5 film packets to put in. But the machine that we had in my photo lab looked like a large speed graphic, and I kind of had nightmares of it from photo school. When I walked in, it's like, oh my God, it's coming after me.
Oh, it's following me. No, I mean, it's, when I went to school, for my bachelor's degree, and I took some photography courses. We did everything. Well, obviously it was still 35 millimeter, and we did everything the old school way, where we would, go into the dark room, and in the dark, right, you'd have to pop open the film canister and pull out the film and wrap it around the little wire thing, all in pitch black, and then put it in the little canister, and then pour the, and so it was like that whole process. And I went through the whole darkroom process of printing and fixing and all that stuff. And I don't miss it. My husband misses it. I don't miss any of that. I don't miss the stat cameras. I don't miss any of that. I'm so happy.
Hey, Kim has a question over there.
Yes. If we find an ad and don't want to cut it up, can we scan it and use that? Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, you can scan it and print it out and cut up that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You don't actually have to. Yeah. If you find an ad that you want to use, but it's in a magazine or something that you don't want to rip apart and whatever, absolutely. You can take a picture of it and print it, or scan it and print it, and cut that printed copy up is fine. As long as it's still color, I think, probably. Or if it's, I think it'd be okay black and white, but it's harder to see the detail in black and white. So try and use color if you can. It's not necessary, but try. Yeah. Okay.
We pretty much put the like on the darkroom side was sheets of 8x10, 11x14 film that we would put in the darkroom side of the camera. Mm-hmm. And then on the other side was a vacuum rotating cabinet that you put the artwork in or whatever, and then when you shut it, it sucks it to the board so it doesn't slide when you rotate it around. Mm-hmm. And then you would take the picture of it, and it was pretty interesting. But those pinholes were a pain in the butt.
Yeah, it's an interesting process, but I think it's interesting to look back on it now as a process, but right. I have no desire. Like I said, my husband's always trying to convince me to put a darkroom in our basement. I'm like, why the heck would I want a darkroom in the basement? And we still have 2 enlargers sitting in my basement, and it's like, I have no desire to go stand on a hard concrete floor for hours. Do it all over ever again when I can sit on my couch and use my computer. That sounds so much easier. But he I guess nostalgia-wise, he has his mom was a photographer, and so it's kind of.
So he grew up with the smell of stop bath and all that stuff.
Exactly. So that's kind of some people grow up with the smell of basil, and he grew up with the smell of stop bath. So. It's kind of a nostalgia thing for him, but for me it was like, oh, thank God I can do this on the computer. Again.
We had one setup that we used that camera on that we would make plates. 3M came out with this type of plaque plate